Good evening. A recent poll taken of my class showed that 99% of my classmates said it was immoral for someone to steal a gallon of milk from the grocery store. However, after then finding out that this person stole in order to feed their starving children, only 26% of them stayed with their original choice. As proven by my class survey, when people are in undesirable and sometimes unsustainable situations, it is morally okay that they do bad things in order to be happy and survive. All of the things that we talked about in this past chapter, including reading Lord of the Flies, supports my claim, saying that it is morally okay to do bad things when in bad situations. This book is about a group of boys that suffer from a plane crash and are left without any adult supervision. They were forced to govern themselves and survive until they were rescued. This came with many tough decisions and trials, but ultimately they were just trying to survive. Because the boys acted barbaric on the island, there were many deaths that occurred. Some were by accident, but others not. In no world is it morally okay to kill somebody. But the good that came out of this situation was that Ralph fessed up to it and told the truth about what had happened. On page 290, Ralph is talking to one of the officers and has announced himself as the leader. He tells him that he is unaware about how many boys are left and that things had gone wrong on the island. Ralph ownership shows that even if you do something bad that cannot be undone, the best thing to do is be honest and honor those who were lost on the island. Ralph felt the darkness inside of him, and he knew that he could not change what had happened, but he was just grateful that someone had finally come to rescue them from that darkness. My second source is from a book that I read a few years ago titled H2O. This book proves that it is sometimes okay to do bad things in bad situations. What happens in this book is there is a problem with acid rain. No one can go outside because if you do and it touches your skin, the people die. And so this threatens the whole world population. And because the rain came without warning, people were left without any food or supplies, and they had to figure out how to get it. This caused people to raid the local stores and supermarkets to get what they needed. I would say with what the situation that these people were in, it was okay that they stole these supplies, even though on a normal day in our world, it would be a crime. Ruby, the main character, is trying to survive in this environmental attack with her family, not only physically, but also mentally. And so she writes her experiences throughout this whole time. And she notes that the craziness is going on around them is far from what they normally see. On page 97 of the book, she says, "Then you could see the front doors were smashed in. Do I even need to say that there was no one at the registers, no one trying to stop or control anything? No, it was a grab what you can job." This evidence that Ruby states supports my thesis because it shows how scared people were in this situation and how frantic they were to get the supplies for their family. I believe that the robbery was justified because nobody was trying to stop them, and without it, none of them would have survived. My final piece of evidence comes from an article we read in class titled The 1972 Andes Flight Disaster. This article features a story about a rugby team that had a tragic plane crash in the borderline mountains of Argentina and Chile. This team had dwindled from 45 to 27 team members in a matter of days due to injuries. There was a search team, however, it got called off in a matter of days due to there was no sight of the plane since it had blended in with the snow. Because the search was over, many lost hope and began to accept that they would never be rescued. Food and supplies were running low, and so they had to consider their options. Reluctantly, they decided it was necessary for them to feed off their past team members in order to survive. I believe that although this is something no one could ever imagine having to do themselves, the team was just trying to survive and had no other option. No one could begin to imagine what these people were going through, but the writer of this article sums it up for us. He says, "There was no natural vegetation or animals on the snow-covered mountain. The group thus survived by collectively making a decision to eat flesh from the bodies of their dead comrades, beginning with the pilot. This decision was not taken lightly as most were classmates or close friends. Photos were leaked to the press that showed the survivors eating the human flesh. Though most people regarded the survivors as heroes, others were disgusted by what they had done and called them to be brought to justice. These excerpts show that the survivors had no intention of eating their teammates even when they first crashed. But when the circumstances turned against them, and when they were left without food, they knew that the bad act that they were about to commit was necessary. When they were finally rescued, most people saw them as heroes for the persistence and survival, while others saw them as barbarians for eating their friends. Before the accident, I would bet that almost everyone would say that it was morally wrong to eat human. However, when put in the position where they had no choice, people began to open their minds to the fact that the bad actions were necessary. Were the actions of these men worse than the theft in H2O and the barbaric fighting in Lord of the Flies? Does this make them worse people? Or were these individuals simply trying to make the best out of a bad situation and survive when the lines of moral decisions were made blurry? In conclusion, when faced with bad situations, exceptions can be made to make bad decisions that would normally be considered morally wrong okay. Lord of the Flies, H2O, and the encyclopedia article we read in class all prove this thesis and show that when circumstances change, individuals' morality can change too. Now, I'm not telling you it's okay to go fight or eat people, but next time you see a news article about someone stealing something, take a time and look into their story. You may be surprised and just find that they had a very good reason for their actions.